They didn't win the lottery. They didn't sell off big companies or cash out on stocks. No big windfalls, no golden handshakes, no sprawling estates. Just the same modest lives they had before retirement. But if you sat with them, listened closely, looked into their eyes, you'd see something rare and beautiful. Peace. Purpose. Real happiness. Today on The Elder Perspective, we're talking about seniors who retired without millions, and lived better than most people who did. Their stories aren't flashy, but they are full of meaning. Let's take a walk through their lives, and along the way, maybe we'll discover something about what truly matters. Let's start with Carol. Carol spent most of her life surrounded by books. For 32 years, she was a librarian at a small public branch in her hometown. She loved the smell of the pages, the quiet of the stacks, and the joy of watching a child discover their first favorite book. She never married. Lived alone in a small cottage she inherited from her aunt. Her salary was modest, and when retirement came, her savings were too. She had about $90,000 in her retirement account, a modest Social Security check, and no pension. People often asked her if she was worried. Her answer? Not really. I never needed much, and I already have everything that makes me happy. She spent her mornings tending to her flower garden, roses, marigolds, lavender. In the afternoons, she volunteered at a local elementary school, reading to second graders who would sit cross-legged, wide-eyed, completely absorbed in her storytelling. She started a weekly book club for other retirees at the community center. She drank her tea slowly, called her sister every Sunday, and journaled each night before bed. Carol said she measured wealth in how many days she went to sleep smiling. By that count, she was one of the richest people alive. Then there's Tony. Tony worked in a manufacturing plant just outside Pittsburgh for nearly 4 decades. Same job, same routine, punch in, work hard, punch out. He raised 3 kids, paid off his mortgage, and never really thought much about retirement until it was right in front of him. When he retired, he had about $80,000 in savings, a bit of Social Security, and a few tools in his garage that he refused to part with. No pension. No fallback. At first, he admits, he panicked. I'd never been a man with time on my hands, he said. But his wife reminded him, you've earned your rest. Now build something new. So he did. Every Wednesday, he met up with a group of old buddies, mostly other retirees, at the local diner. They called themselves the Wednesday Breakfast Club. They'd sip black coffee, tell the same stories every week, and talk about everything from baseball to the price of milk. On Mondays, Tony started fixing old lawnmowers and bikes for his neighbors. For free. Gives me something to do, he'd say. Before long, people from across the neighborhood were stopping by. Some stayed for coffee, others for advice. He became something of a local legend, the guy who could fix anything, always smiling, always willing. He once told his grandson, the trick isn't to have a lot of money. It's to not need a lot of money to be happy. And when you saw Tony with grease on his hands and a grin on his face, it was clear, he meant it. Now let me tell you about Maria. Maria's life was anything but easy. She lost her husband in her early 50s, and raised 3 kids on her own while working as a home health aide. It was hard work, physically and emotionally, but she did it with love. She gave everything to her kids, time, money, dreams. When she finally reached retirement age, she had virtually nothing saved. No 401k, no investments, just a Social Security check and a small apartment she rented from a friend. But here's what she did have. 3 grown children who adored her. They didn't shower her with cash. They gave her their time. One picked her up every Sunday for dinner. Another brought the grandkids over every Thursday after school. The youngest called her every morning before work, just to hear her voice. Maria became the anchor of her family. Her tiny apartment was filled with laughter, the smell of homemade soup, and the sounds of old Spanish songs playing on a small radio. She joined a prayer group at her church, started teaching kids how to cook traditional dishes, and crocheted blankets for newborns at the hospital. Once, a friend asked her if she regretted not having a nest egg. She smiled and said, "I didn't save much money. But I saved my family. And they saved me back." And then there's Harold and Louise. Married for 45 years, they lived in the same home since their third anniversary. A small one-story house with a creaky porch swing and flower pots that Louise refused to give up on, even when they wilted. Harold worked as a postal worker. Louise was a lunch lady at the local high school. They never earned much, but they also never lived beyond their means. Every Friday night, they had a ritual: takeout from the same diner, card games, and a walk under the stars. When they retired, nothing really changed. They still woke up early, made breakfast together, read the newspaper over coffee, and took afternoon walks around the block. They found joy in their routines, peace in each other's company. Once a year, they'd take their camper out to a national park. Nothing fancy, no hotels or resorts. Just the two of them, a thermos of coffee, and the open road. "We never needed millions," Louise once said. "We just needed time." Their story reminds us, love, routine, and presence can be the greatest comforts of all. As we weave through these lives, a pattern begins to emerge. Happiness in retirement, real happiness, rarely depends on money alone. It comes from simplicity, community, love, and purpose. These seniors didn't obsess over investments or interest rates. They focused on something deeper: how to live each day well. Some moved to more affordable places, downsizing their homes but upsizing their peace of mind. Others found shared housing with old friends, creating a new version of family. Many embraced frugality, not with bitterness but with pride, choosing experiences over expenses. They took up hobbies they'd long forgotten: painting, woodworking, gardening, storytelling. They finally had time to breathe. And in that space, they found meaning. Now, let's pause for a moment and talk about what this means for you. If you're nearing retirement, or already in it, you might feel a little nervous. The world tells us we need millions to feel secure. But these stories challenge that idea. They remind us that fulfillment doesn't come from bank statements. It comes from living intentionally. Ask yourself, what brings me joy? Who do I want to spend time with? How can I contribute to the world, even in small ways? Because the truth is, we don't stop mattering when we stop working. In fact, retirement is when many people finally become who they were meant to be, free from deadlines, expectations, and stress. You get to slow down. You get to savor. You get to live, not just exist. If your savings aren't what you hoped, that's okay. Focus on what you do have: your experiences, your wisdom, your relationships, and your time. These are the most valuable assets you'll ever own. So take walks. Call your friends. Teach someone what you've learned. Laugh often. Spend more time looking at the sky and less time worrying about numbers on a page. Because like Carol, Tony, Maria, and Harold and Louise, you can build a beautiful life, without millions. If this story touched your heart, we'd be honored if you'd subscribe to The Elder Perspective. Here, we share more than advice, we share the lived wisdom of people like you. Drop a comment below: what does a happy retirement mean to you? Or tell us your story, we're listening. Remember, life isn't about how much you've saved. It's about how well you live. And it's never too late to start writing your best chapter yet. Until next time, stay strong, stay grateful, and stay wise.